Hello, welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets. Skylar, Hoke here, Tom Jacobs. How we doing, my friend?
I'm good. It was an electric Sunday as ever on the DP World Tour. Houghton Lee played like someone that hasn't won in 4 years, whilst also playing like someone that we know that's beaten Rory McIlroy in the past. It was kind of like a mix of everything in there. A lot of emotions lit out. I'm sure people have seen the videos, and there were some choice words about how he shook hands with Thomas Peters and things like that. But it was good to see him win. I think he got a fair few bounces, it must be said. But yeah, I mean, he probably deserved it on the effort for the rest of the week.
Yeah, there was also a few choice words used in his post-round interview too.
There was.
Although Pat and Jeff let him fly, sometimes I'll hold back my F-bombs here. But golf can be hard. Maybe next time I hit an outright winner, I'm going to celebrate like Houghton.
I hope you do. I mean, especially with Guido. Like, imagine like it'll be that, but like shirt off, and there won't be the respectful caddy in there or anything like that. It would just be. I mean, I'd be the caddy, so that definitely won't be respectful. I'm looking forward to that.
Amen. Yeah, we have. Yesterday was, that was just the start of a pretty wild Sunday across the golf world. We roll into this week with even more stuff evolving every day. I mean, our conversations about, live and what's going on there and the players who are now committing and playing in there. I still we don't have to go back deep down our Euro Tour purchase acquisition move that they're in. I go round and round about it all the time on what's next. Pelly has not came out with, I guess since we did speak, they came out with about as minimal slap of a wrist as you probably could have for that. It's just a one-time $100,000 fee or fine, right? And then they're not allowed to play in the co-sanctioned events. Like, I don't even know if they could have played them anyway.
So that was the thing, right? I think it's been made to look like he's taking a stance, but he's actually just suspending them from the events they're already suspended from because they're PGA Tour events. Yep. So the only thing now that I think can help the PGA Tour is if they can get control of the Rolex events, which is something I think they're trying to do. So if they can get Wentworth and they can get DP World Tour finals, etc., then they will have a complete control over those guys. That I think is the aim. Having the conversation I had with Peter Uline, and I think they're just going to let them play. I think they're going to take the win, let the guys play. I mean, it's going to give them some better fields than they've had. We saw last week how important it is for them to have kind of star players in the field. You had Oosthuizen up there, you had Peters and obviously Howard Song in the playoff. If you start losing those guys, I mean, obviously only one of those is Liv at the moment, but I just don't think they can lose out. And we look at the John Deere Classic field this week, and Liv picked the right week to go up against it, and then I think the next one's going up against Rocket Mortgage as well. So they've certainly know how to pick their schedule. Yeah,
and actually, I would think even this event for us, to me, is a better field than the John Deere Classic. I'm curious strength of field, for OWGR, but I think we're just going to keep going round and round, and getting the Rolex events while also letting them play is kind of putting a little bit of toes on each side of the water there for each side. But we go on as we go on, and we hit probably my favorite 3-week stretch of consecutive events leading in. I guess you include the Open Championship in that. We kick it here to the Horizon Irish Open. And that's really we lead in this. Scottish is already next week, and then of course the Open Championship to follow there. We started to see the trickle effect of some of the PGA Tour fringe guys that are playing this week, or no real stars outside of Lowry. But next week we see some big heavy hitters. So we are back at Mount Juliet Estate. So we've only seen this course one time, I guess, as of recent. I wasn't sure, but before, when Lucas Herbert won, cashed a ticket last year. Good vibes here, Lucas Herbert. But that was a fun week there, and it's a strong field. I guess. What are your kind of overall impressions right off the top?
Yes, I think I looked back at the video we did last year, and there was a guy that was sort of thanking you for the cash-in ticket, and that was great. I think, first of all, the first thing that stood out to me was a comment that we made last year that there might have been some crossover with Crans-Sierre. And, retrospectively looking back at the leaderboard, there certainly was. Lucas Herbert won. He finished 8th at Crans. Karlberg was 2nd last year. He's finished 9th at Crans. Richard Bland was 4th last year. He's been 5th at Crans. Richie Ramsey was 4th last year. He's won at Crans. Sean Crocker, 9th here, 4th at Crans. Beef Johnston, 9th here, 3rd at Crans. Matthew Jordan, 4th at Crans last year, 12th here last year. So there was some decent crossover with that, which I think is one that I've certainly put some stock into. And also, we sort of mentioned it probably wouldn't be too dissimilar from Galgorm Castle, which was the 2020 Irish Open venue. And I think, again, there was some crossover there. Like Herbert finished tied 7th and then won here. Aaron Rye was 2nd there, finished 12th here. Richard Bland was 4th here last year, 14th at Galgorm. Same for Rick Karlberg was 14th at Galgorm. So I think there was some decent crossover, which will come into my line of thinking again later on in one of our picks. But it just feels like we've got some pointers, despite the fact there was only 1 year course form.
Yeah, and you'll see fairly evident as I go down my card, but I never will ever say anything is obvious when it comes to picking winners. But where we see, and Herbert is the exact mold of some of the guys we'll discuss a little bit later, where he was getting some sponsor exemptions on the PGA Tour, and without much notice was taking really good advantage of them. Like, I don't think many people will look back on the year and recall that he went back-to-back top 20s, prior to that. The Memorial, which was a difficult golf course, and the Travelers did that leading into after making a cut in the major for that. And I mean, I believe he was still like 35 to 40 to 1, which, that's still not like the shortest of odds, but one golfer that comes to mind that we'll be both on this week kind of really fits that mold, in my opinion, and excited to go through that. So when we look at the odds board, top of the way, like we mentioned, Shane Lowry, standalone golfer near the top. I mean, I think it's rightfully that we discuss kind of Lowry as a whole and where he deserves, but single digits for somebody in a DP World Tour event has not been anything we've really discussed actually being on our card. So he's just to stay away from me. Will be interesting to see him kind of carry through these next weeks, but we both kind of start our cards a decent bit down the board.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of mentioned earlier that he was kind of the standout PGA Tour player. I suppose you've obviously got Power and Hatton that you could probably put in that bracket as well. Power obviously only this season's really elevated his game to that level. But like you, I mean, just, you mentioned there that the player that we're going to come to that we sort of agree on fits the mold. But just looking down your card, just, while you were talking there, basically the guys you've gone with have been guys that have been pretty consistent on the PGA Tour level, and we're just going to see how they drop down, right? I mean, barring a couple that, one I'm sure everyone might be able to guess, and one sort of recent add to yours. So otherwise, I think you've kind of gone with the mold of PGA Tour players dropping down, and I get that because it just worked so well with Lucas Herbert last year. I think it's going to work well in Scotland, and it's going to work well in the Open Championship's obviously not a step down, but like it does feel like that's probably the recipe for success.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is we talk about it reverse all the time. We talked about with Higa last week, and I'll be betting him again. And we see form on the Japanese golf tour. They don't know how to price him in theory because he's never accepted the challenge. Finishes 10th, spent a good amount of time on Saturday and even early Sunday in the places, and just had an opportunity. Had he gone really low, I mean, he had some terrible rounds. Like I think his Thursday or Friday was bad, and Saturday was a really good round. Like, he shoots better on those couple of days, and he's right there in the thick of things. And so you get that opportunity. You don't know where to price him, but I do think maybe not enough credit is given to the strength of fields on the PGA Tour that a lot of these guys played against, and to just plop them in the middle of some other DP World Tour guys, where if they would have played an entire season on there, you just don't know how much better they might be than, especially.
Right, I think we saw like Matt Wallace, right, recently. Like as soon as he came back down to the DP World Tour, back-to-back top 10s or top 15s.
He's been terrible on the PGA Tour.
Awful. Yeah, and like it. One of the people, and this is going to I'm going to sort of go straight into your pick and then let you talk about it. But like Aaron Rye is the perfect candidate for that, right? Because he has been really good on the PGA Tour in comparison to what I expected. And he's been doing it at courses I really didn't like. I thought he'd be good at Pebble, and I thought he'd be good at Honda, and I thought he'd be good at, Travelers and all these kind of shorter courses where he can kind of just sort of, make some putts and get going. And it's actually been the courses you don't expect, like the Torrey Pines of the world, that you really didn't expect him to play well at, that he's done well at. So I think coming back to an Irish Open, as we sort of alluded to earlier, with the fact that he's been sort of second at Galgorm and 12th here, that it feels like a really good opportunity for someone like him. So I'll let you give the reasoning for Aaron Rye.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a simple. Again, we talked about last week about like kind of defining guys who have had like better years, even by the numbers in some sense. And now we have a sample size. But I mean, he has missed one cut on the PGA Tour since April, and that includes 6 top 30 finishes. You mentioned that strong finish. Or strong event that he had at the Farmers Insurance. Just like I think he's had a really strong year on the PGA Tour for a rookie as he is. And I mean, is Power that much better than him? I mean, Power's been really good in the majors. It's his home open in a sense. Has Hatton, played Hatton's year on the PGA Tour hasn't been, near, I don't think, as good as Aaron Rye's. Peter's deserving, Lee Price where he is. Fox finds himself in the mix again. But I just, if you truly saw more of Aaron Rye in the DP World Tour, like I think he's just enough of a chance to get to at 32-1. Somebody who plays some fairways, plays some greens, wears 2 gloves, has just enough upside in him.
A better guy that wears 2 gloves than the other one. Yeah, it must be said.
Fair. It just, I don't know, like this recipe feels certainly just the one that I just want to continue to rinse and repeat down the board as we go. Because I think these guys, not only are they priced, I don't know if I want to say inefficiently, but maybe not as correct as it could be, but they've also had sneaky good seasons, in my opinion, on the PGA Tour as rookies for some of them. So Rye, 32-1 for me for sure.
I think the thing so if we directly compare it to Lucas Herbert, right? Like Aaron Rye's, his form has been sustained for longer than Herbert's was. So he had those good couple of events and then came into this and won, and you sort of picked up on that and it made sense. He'd already had the 1 win, I think Herbert had at that point. I think he'd won the Dubai Desert Classic before coming in and winning this one. Aaron Rye's won twice. He's won the Hong Kong Open and he's won the Scottish Open. He's beaten Matthew Fitzpatrick by a stroke and Tommy Fleetwood in the playoff. So, I think the pedigree is just as much there for Aaron Rye as Lucas Herbert. I think the key, to success for both of them is fairly similar, or the path to success is fairly similar. So I think that they're actually a really good match. And then you add in the fact that Aaron Rye's now got the benefit of playing here last year and playing Cornwall Castle the year before. Like it does feel like, I mean, it was him or Ryan Fox that were the two that kind of really tempted me at the top. And Fox, just when I looked at his kind of record on this golf course and Galcombe Castle was really poor. Like I just wondered whether he just needs a real true Irish Open, like a links test to succeed. Yeah. But I think he's probably playing well enough to just overcome anything like that before. But yeah, I think Aaron Rye is a really strong candidate. I haven't gone there, but I can see it.
Yeah, and I think it plays right into our selection together where, comparing and contrasting the seasons that Aaron Rye and Minwoo Lee have had. It actually surprised me as I looked through it that, Minwoo hasn't played on the DP World Tour since January. No. That's right. I mean, that is like, so it's almost like what, I mean, he basically is taking his sponsors exemptions. He got into the WGC. And what's hysterical is the only 2 cuts he's made are the most difficult events of there. And truthfully, like he had a bad Sunday at the U.S. Open, and he had an amazing front 9 Sunday at the Masters, where like he was front page of the leaderboard in both of them at points, which is crazy to put around. You would have thought he would have capitalized at other points in the season. And he's just one of those guys that has extreme upside. Obviously, we saw him win a really, really strong event last year. But in addition to that, what do you think is the case for Minwoo for both of us?
I think the thing is like the one thing I would say about Minwoo Lee versus the Rye selection before is that like he hasn't taken advantage of those PGA Tour events, to your point. Like he's missing basically every regular cut. And I don't know if that's just like too much of a self-imposed pressure. Like he realizes he had an opportunity to get a PGA Tour card. He's really tried to take it and do it in those regular events. And then when he's got to the major championship and realized that like it's going to be really hard for him that week and he just needs to kind of focus and build his game around it. Plus the fact, I think like the mentoring aspect of some of the Aussies that are in the field with him, maybe play some practice rounds with those guys, especially like a place like a Masters with Adam Scott and Leishman and Day, etc. So I don't know if that even necessarily is the case, but I think that's one thing for it. But it feels very much like Matt Wallace. Like that would be the comparison I would make. Like miss a cut, drops down to the DP World Tour, and he's going to play well again. Like if you look at his last 5 starts on this tour, 35th I think was the January start, and then 16th, 8th, 2nd, 39th, going back the 4 before that to the tail end of last year. 17th here last year on this golf course, and he had 1 bad round, and he had 3 rounds of 67 or better at Crans last year as well when he was 21st. So I liked both of those things, and I thought the price was way big enough really to find out, because we've basically been talking about Min Woo Lee now as like, I guess, Thomas Peters, Ryan Fox, Jordan Smith level of golfer on this tour, and he's not priced that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing is, without a shadow of a doubt, I feel like if you had him on the DP World Tour for every single start that these other guys had, like he in my opinion, would have just as many opportunities for wins that those guys did. He's just that class of a player.
It's really hard that we just don't know. We don't know whether he would do what Ryan Fox, Victor Perez, Thomas Peters are doing with those starts if he was back.
Yeah.
We assume he would, which is why we're taking the price. But like, that's the element of unknown, which I actually kind of like the fact that we don't necessarily know whether that's going to be the case. Like, we've seen Robert McIntyre's in the same sort of place in the market. We've seen him drop down a couple of times this season and play okay, but not necessarily succeed. He's missed his last 2 cuts in Germany. Like, it feels like we've now got a chance to see whether Min Woo Lee can do it. If he starts missing cuts on these events as well, then you kind of just dismiss him and move on and just say he's out of form. But until we know that, I think we should play him.
Yeah, I agree. And the price is, well worth the squeeze, in my opinion there. Before we keep going down the board, I want to make sure we always plug our audio formats for us. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports, Picks and Bets, the mix on all your different audio platforms. If you're more of a listener on your commute, you want to make sure you get in all the action, especially as we gear up on this stretch here. Rate, review, subscribe goes a long way to keep this going, keep our efforts here rewarded. Really enjoy, of course, our show here. As more eyeballs get onto this tour, it'll definitely be exciting as we continue on. And we're going to probably see the integration more. Well, not probably. We potentially are going to see the integration more of some of these type of guys that are, on live that are going to come down here and play in some of these events. And again, as we get price discovery, that provides opportunity for us. And a golfer that I've really kept my eye on all season long, because Min Woo Lee's had a really weird year, I would say, in the sense of the upside it possesses, and Rise had a really consistent year. I don't think the year that Kurt Kitayama has been correctly, I guess, just like noticed, I guess, in my sense. Like, statistically, he pops often, not consistently, but he shows in certain tracks or certain skills that he can really still drive it with the best of them. He's one of the better drivers there on tour. He's gone out with some really lights out irons at times. And I mean, a third at a Honda Classic, a second at the Mexico Open, 15th at Wells Fargo. Like, he's shown a lot. I actually had really high hopes for him at the U.S. Open. I thought he had a shot at that style of course. And I don't necessarily think, this is the perfect course in the sense, but what Kitayama in the numbers that I've really looked at possesses is like high. If you look at like single strokes gain statistics, like by shot, he offers really high upside, like of taking advantage of things, like 90 percentile shots or better. And when you have that type of guy, actually, Lucas Herbert is another guy that's very similar. Some might refer to it as like, magic beans type of thing. But like, when you show it over a consistent amount of time, like, that's just maybe part of, your arsenal of game. And Kitayama does have some of that upside from different parts of his game. So I think 75s, 80s that are out there for him, he just, when I put him up against some of these other guys, I struggle to not think like, he's on the PGA Tour for a reason, to get him down in this range just feels like I have to take that opportunity too.
Yeah, and it's interesting because with Kitayama, it's, again, I think you kind of made a point well, like, he's not been consistent on either tour, so you can't even really gauge much from, like, if he drops down in level, he's going to be really successful. I wouldn't necessarily feel massively confident in that statement as much as I would like Aaron Rai or something like that, but like, he just seems to be able to do it anywhere. Like, he just seems to be able to get in the mix. He's got a game that kind of suits both. I mean, last year we kind of mentioned the Qatar Masters as a potential link. I don't know if that necessarily played out as much as we thought it would do, but he was ninth in that. And you look at the fact that Lucas Herbert's other win was the Dubai Desert Classic, and he's got a 6th and a 20th place finish on that event as well, which is generally a pretty strong field. And you start to think that he's probably good for this level. So I don't know about Kitsuyama. Again, I think that's more unknown than even I thought about. I just think that maybe it's come to an abrupt end, that kind of form that he had, but it's tough. I mean, I think he's worth giving a go at the price in this field and then figuring out what he does before he goes back to the PGA Tour.
Yeah, it's just, and it feels, I'll just lay out my last pick too in the same mold. These last two are definitely like not as stomaching as Minwoo and Aaron Rai are, but Kitayama looking into that, and then the only other one is like Troy Merritt. When you look at like who's playing here and who is 4x the price, Data Golf, I respect Data Golf a lot, kind of looking at their numbers, and he was like a clear outlier from where they produced their odds versus where. So I mean, they have him close to, by their numbers, close to 40 to 1. Where again, I'm not running the same type of crossover odds, making as some of the best in the game do. I think that's incredibly valuable to do it and to make consistent selections off of edges. And just noticing this one and continuing to bet the other route, I would have kicked myself not to add Merritt, even though like his year just hasn't been good, really, almost all. And
it felt like he was going to have a really good season at the start, right? Like he started off well at the Mayo with the RSM, Pebble. He had a really good chance to win Texas Heritage. Like, it almost looked like Troy Merritt was going to get that kind of, it's not a breakthrough because he's obviously won the Quicken Loans in 2015, but like, and the Barbasol actually, but like it felt like one where he was going to make a step up, like winning a Pebble Beach or winning a Heritage kind of feels like a bit bigger Texas Open, so I can see it. And like when you go back to last year as well, I thought it was a Scottish Open, but I think it's the Dunhill Links that he played in and played pretty well in as well. So it just shows that like when they do come over, they tend to play pretty well.
Yeah, 27th at Dunhill last year. He did 3 events in 19, made the cut in every one of them. And they played the Aussie Open in 19 as well. And popped up. I don't know, like it almost feels when we had the Saudi International. And some of those guys were, I mean, the field strength was definitely a level up, but like we took shots on Justin Rose. We took shots on Kevin Na. I feel like every time Johnny Vegas shows up in these events, like Johnny Vegas is up on the front page of a leaderboard. I mean, if you're running these guys head to head, are you just not thinking that, Troy Merritt isn't better than some of these other guys that are priced around him? Right.
One of those cuts he made in 2019 was Kranz. He started with a 67 and closed with a 66. So, if there is, I'm not even going to say if there is a link to Kranz, like the leaderboard was so obviously Kranz affected last year that I think that's a pretty strong comparison. Whether these things ever play out, like a lot of people just point to the fact that they were the strongest players in the field and et cetera, et cetera. But like, I think there's a real thing. So I think that's an added bonus.
Yeah, and I guess it's very difficult to see if this plays out on a 2-week sample size. Like that's what we're gonna have. Realistic. We're gonna have this week and then next week of having this mix of guys, and you can't judge whether or not it was the best selections to go by just because we make it 2 random events. But I think undervalued.
I think also next week
guys,
is tough because it's like split, right?
So
like
good, yeah. There's too many almost.
Yeah,
it's like. How often are you get some of these guys at these prices? And I think that just kind of wraps up my little mold of some of those selections. But you have one of our old faithfuls, or I guess old faithful, by saying that you have somebody who has been on the DP World Tour an more than an extended period of time.
He's
right
old.
Richie Ramsey.
Old in faithful there. But he was 4th here last year. He shot 70 or better in every round. He's won Kranz, which is obviously a bit of a boost. He's got 4 top 10s in the Irish Open. And, again, most of those are kind of links tests. But the fact that he's finished 4th here last year, is great. And he was 26th last week with his irons, and he was 13th in Germany to finish up the week, which was a pretty decent performance coming off a withdrawal at the European Open, which I still don't know. Apparently there was a little bit of back injuries, but I think that was kind of that wacky course that it kind of, pissed everybody off basically. But, he was third at the British Masters. One shot kind of cost him a chance to win there. 15th at the Sadao Open. Now finished 13th last week. Now it comes to a test that we know is going to suit by, the fact that he played well here last year with a fourth. He plays well in Britain generally. And, that Crans thing, I do really like it. So I was going to pick Ramsey before the Crans thing sort of popped up, and I'd done that kind of research. But, it just seems a good price, like 66 to 1 or, around that price for someone that we know can win, someone that needs to probably get one more before. So I think he's a guy that's probably content with what he's done in his career, but if he gets one more, he'll be really happy with what he's done, and especially in this new age. So I liked Richie Ramsey. And the other guy I can't make my mind up, and one I was going to talk through you was Romain Langasque. Like, he's got back-to-back top 6 finishes, 3 top 8s in his last 5 starts, 7 top 10s in total in 2022. Like, finished 7th at Crowns in 2016. He's won in the UK. He won at the Wales Open in 2020, 3rd in Scotland in 2019. 6th in the field in strokes gained tees green in the last 15 weeks, 3rd in back-to-back starts in that department, 2nd and 3rd in approach. But it still feels like there's stuff that I need to be convinced by, and that's not good for someone that has all of that going for him, and I'm still not sure.
He's one I can never put my finger on. Like, I know he's one of Ben's, favorite selections week in and week out. I know our friend Jamie, Jamie, who had an outstanding week last week, was on Langasque too. I never seem to find myself on him. He often is much shorter, I guess, than kind of where. Yeah,
this felt like the one week where his price was relative to kind of what I wanted. Like, he's normally kind of in that 28, 33 to 1 bracket where I just don't have an interest, like whether I should or not. And all of a sudden he's kind of pricier. I think it kind of strengthens the case for him with Lee a little bit, whilst also kind of respecting what he does. In the end, it's kind of like he's played poorly in Ireland so far, and that might be enough to put me off by the fact that he probably doesn't win anyway. But like, I think he can probably, like, in terms of DraftKings and stuff like that, if that gets put on there, I think he would be a solid add to a team like that.
Yep. I think that's very fair. I have one more sub 100 to 1. You got 2 left, correct? Deep, you got the 2 triple-digit guys for us. Yeah. Okay. So I think if you look at one of the other ways that we have seen success in some theories, I guess, is especially they've carried over on some of these early DP World Tour events, post majors, is picking up guys that did play well and show out. And I think there's a few of them that we've gotten. Obviously, you get Peters losing in the playoff, after having the best week of anybody, probably, right, on the DP World Tour at the US Open, coming out well. I mean, Ryan Fox almost won, should have won. I mean, that still makes me that tough. Should have won for us, right after a strong major. Arnaus, mix right in the mix after, a major championship, doing well. I thought Will Besseling still, top 25s. We get Sebastian Soderberg coming out after a pretty sneaky, again, not all telling where the final number really ended up being, but, he had a strong, US Open as well. But, no one had a US Open like Guido Migliozzi. I mean, Sunday 66 out there fist pumping. I mean, he might just be everything that he was from a ball striking standpoint in, the glory years of 18, 19. He just have converted everything to short game because he's just a wizard now. You talk about magic beans. Guido's just making putts from deep, chipping in left and right. Guy's got a short game. And finally, that long game popped in. And why? Like, why does that show up in a major championship? I mean, Tom, he's been positive with his irons one time, and he missed a cut that week. One time all season long. Literally, the last time he was positive with his irons and made a cut was the Italian Open in 2021, September of 2021. He top 10, the Dutch Open. We saw some life there, again, led by the putter. My goodness, he's out there at the US Open just firing at pins with the best of them. And they're going to give him to us at good odds. Here we are, Tom. we're betting Guido Migliozzi again, and I feel great about this one. 80-1, they're pulling out there. I feel really good about this one.
I mean, I'm glad you feel good about it. It's one of those ones where I don't feel like I need to reinforce your case because people know you're going to make your case for you. But yeah, like it's good, right? Like it's good to see some life from him. If you look at it just from a micro standpoint, he's got a 14th and 10 in his last 3 starts. Like that's a pretty good just kind of form line anyway for basically anyone. British Masters is probably a nice thing to add in there. He's got a second in that. 7th at Kranzas, in 2021. That's that's a positive. I'm giving them to you here.
Love it, which is
yeah. I mean, it's good. I think, isn't it always the way though that like, okay, now he's got a great short game, his long game deserts him. Like, isn't it like it's just the same with everyone? Like, you just hear like Will Zalatoris like needs to have a putting week to win. He has like positive putting weeks at the major championships, and then his ball striking deserts him at the worst time. Like it just feels like you can never kind of get that complete game. So
yeah,
not sure.
I mean, again, 1 round samples, best of the world. I mean, here you are, showing out on Sunday, best rounds of the day. Hideki, Morikawa, Scheffler, Fitzpatrick, Denny McCarthy, Adam Scott, Mark Leishman, Xander, and Guido. I mean, Guido had the second best round of the day, second best round of the entire tournament, like that's a lot in there. And
it feels like it's taking a lot into like you going off about it. It just feels like it's taking a lot out of you. Like you're just excited, right? Like
it feels good to be back.
But it's like it's almost like a child on candy with a sugar crush. Like you look like that. You're like, whoa, Guido, what a time to be alive. Like that's what it feels like right now through the lens of Zoom.
I mean, it just if anybody in the world would be betting this guy, I feel like, and the fact that it gets to be Guido Migliozzi, like it's everything you could literally dream of. So I'm super prepared to wake up to that, first round when he shot 100 on the one after he finished 10th. So let's get back to our weekly scheduled pain.
It is pain. Yeah, one guy you mentioned there actually was Will Besseling, and he's another guy that like before like I made my sort of card, he was along with Len Gask, like a little bit just unsure of whether I can go there. But like he was 17th here last year, 13th at Crans, where he had 3 really good rounds. He finished like 66, 68, 67 after opening with 71. He only finished 2 shots outside the top 4. Like, and now he's just playing really solidly. Like to your point, he played well at the US Open. He's played well since. Like it feels like he's on I don't want to say a different trajectory than what we expected, because I think the game was always there, but like it feels like he's found some solid form, and second at the Porsche European Open, 56th at the US Open, 26th at the International Open, 23rd at Sadao, 9th at Catalunya. Like it feels like he's putting together a really solid bank of form. So both Will Besseling and Romain Langasque were both kind of in my thoughts and not really quite sure where to go with them.
Yeah, it's just I think I could have bet a good amount more than, I try to always 6, 7 kind of be my number depending on where you end up, unless you're too top heavy. But yeah, I think even when I looked at some of the shorter sample guys, it was really good to see Sean Crocker have, his kind of coming back, and also Crocker, and then Niall Kearney. Kearney was another one where you kind of see some of these short, I guess, sample sizes, but they also like pop multiple times. Like Crocker's popped a couple times in a few weeks. We have Kearney showing up there and obviously going back into a home open. I think he's intriguing. And like I mentioned earlier, circling back, one last selection for me before we get to your two long shots. Of course, we had Guido, but Higa, and he was still 100-1 stateside. I think he got chopped pretty decent early on. There were some good numbers. He's all the way down to 65-1 in some spots. There was triple digits as we're recording here. But I think he's worth chancing, kind of still in that range. As he was really, really good with the short game. I think Thursday, Friday, he lit up his putter, but Saturday he led the field in approach. Again, we have nothing, from a strokes gain standpoint on this guy. So still a mixed bag and understanding what it is, but leading the field Saturday, having that incredible round and earning a spot into this next week via the top 10 finish, and still getting odds that we do here. I'm going to continue to roll that dice back at him at an equal number.
Yeah, I think like you just got to apply the same logics last week, right? Like we thought about it being the unknown, and we sort of said, we don't know quite how he's going to react to the step up. But, he led the field in approach on Saturday, gained almost 4.3 strokes in approach. He was pretty disappointed with his irons other than that, but I don't know, it's tough, isn't it? It's really, really tough. Niall Kearney and Sean Crocker led those approach numbers. So it's interesting.
It was a weird, I don't want to stop you, but it was a super weird week in regard to the statistics. I haven't had a chance to really go back through and see, but if you looked in the guys who finished inside the top 10, the best iron player was ranked 7th for the week. And that was Louis, who finished in a tie for 8th, I believe. Nobody that was in contention, was leading approach numbers. And that is just not how the standard golf week kind of goes. And obviously you saw guys who were really, really good with their driver in Hautong and Peters and Fox be the top 3. It was great to see Sammy Valimaki doing it with his short game that you kind of see. But it was kind of a weird week in regards to how the stats roll, because a lot of these guys who were dialed in from ball striking weren't necessarily the top of the guys. But let's go into your final 2 selections here. You got a couple to round us out here deep down the board.
Yeah, so one that I thought was worth it, again, a bit like the best in the lane gas thing. I didn't want to go too far into it, but Van Drill's got back-to-back top 10 finishes and 17th last year. I thought that was of note. But the 2 guys I've gone for, one that I wasn't going to go for, and Baroff will like this one, is Maximilian Kiefer. He's been 5th and 8th in previous Irish Opens, and again, they're more links tests than they are what he did, what you're going to get this year. But he was 39th here last year, had a bad Saturday, and that kind of just plays into things. But he's top 16 in tee to green in this field over the last 15 weeks. He's top 5 in approach in the same span. He's been 14th miscut, 6th, 26th in his last 4 starts. And then he opened Crans with a 64 to lead in 2018, and was also 13th there in 2013. So just adding kind of that Crans link in, just adding the fact that he's kind of playing some of the better golf of his, I don't want to say season, but of his season, but not his career. But it feels like he's playing some really consistent golf, which I like to see. And the one miscut was a Porsche European Open. Is that kind of bit of distraction from the fact that he was in his home country, then backs out with a 26th in Germany as well. So I think Kiefer's worth a play. And then the one that I really like is Dan Heising. At really good odds. He was 14th at Galgorm, which we've kind of pointed out could be potentially a little bit of a crossover. He's won the Irish Challenge and the Northern Ireland Open on the Challenge Tour. He's got another 3rd at the Northern Ireland Open. And that 10th place finish at the European Open 3 starts ago, only top 10 he's ever had on tour. And that could be seen as a negative, but it could also be seen as the fact that he's actually finding some belief. And that kind of crept in last week. He was 2nd after round 1. I think he shot 63 to Hautong's 62. And he was 3rd at the halfway mark. So yes, he kind of faded away, and you could possibly see that happening again. But all these kind of experiences lead you to believe that he can kind of add to that. And what does he learn from fading away on DP World Tour when he doesn't necessarily do so on the Challenge Tour? So I think Dan Heising is a guy that I think everyone's kind of been waiting for the chips to fall a little bit. He's been around for a long time. This is not a new guy on the block, right? He's been in for 2013, 2012 on the Challenge Tour, etc. But it feels like some people just take longer than others to really kick off the DP World Tour level, and I'm willing to give him a chance to do it this season.
Yeah, one that's been kind of on that fringe watch list for a few weeks now after he kind of had that pop up. And if you get some of those correlations that kind of roll into there and the odds that you do, definitely worth chancing. But yeah, big week ahead. Excited to kind of get a stronger event and lead into next week. Want to say, well, you'll hear an update from us in regards to scheduling for next week, holiday on Monday here in the States. I guess technically many have Tuesday off too. So we're going to hopefully get something kind of unique up for the biggest event in the world next week that we get to kind of preview from our end and showcase maybe some of our values and different guys about what most are familiar with the PGA Tour players. So that'll round out everything. Can you review your card for me one time here, Tom?
Yeah, so it's Minwoo Lee for me. I think it's about 40 to 1, 45 to 1. Richie Ramsey, 65 to 1. Maximilian Kiefer, 120 to 1. And Dan Heising, he's 250 to 1 over here, but I think it's about 160 to 1 with you guys. And then just if you're going to sort of look at DraftKings or you want an extra play, Langas, Besseling, and Van Driel were all kind of close to my thoughts.
Yep, absolutely. So for me, Aaron Rai is 32-1. Minwoo Lee with you there, 40-1. Kurt Kitayama, 75-1. Guido Migliazzi, gosh, feels good, 80-1.
It feels good to say that again.
Yes, Troy Merritt, 80-1. And then Kazuki Higa at 100-1. Again, make sure you price shop for Higa. He's been really all over the odds. Like I mentioned last week, he started as long as 300-1, got all the way down to 45-1 and kind of found the middle. Maybe we'll kind of see that range fall back into place if he got some early action. But that kind of rolls us out for us here. Big week ahead. Best of luck, everybody. And let's cash some tickets.